living in an apartment at the time, and he shows up. I open the door, and there's this bad Zero Mostel comb over.
I could win the Nobel Prize and it would say, Meathead wins Nobel.
Out of the relationship between father and daughter. And we chose you because just like Carol O'Connor, you have blue eyes and a fat face. I said, okay. Thanks.
It wasn't the kind of statement anyone saw coming when serious rumors started swirling about Rob Reiner. The industry was ready for the usual PR routine, a carefully polished response full of safe wording about privacy and respect. Everyone expected the standard Hollywood cleanup move, nothing more. But what actually came next completely shocked people. Sally Struthers didn't deliver a rehearsed speech or a filtered press note. She spoke straight from the heart. Her words hit raw, emotional, and completely unguarded. It wasn't performance or pity bait, it was truth spilling out in real time, the kind that makes you stop scrolling because it feels too real to even watch. This wasn't just some old coworker chasing attention. Sally had grown up side by side with Rob on the All in the Family set. Their connection ran deep, and you could feel that loyalty in every word. The bond didn't vanish when the cameras went dark, and you could tell it never faded. She wasn't just looking back, she was finally letting go of months of quiet pain that had been building under the surface. Then came the moment that flipped everything. The subtle things she said didn't just sound emotional. They lined up with quiet rumors already bouncing around private circles, even reaching certain Hollywood insiders reportedly linked to Tom Cruise. Sally didn't sound like she was throwing accusations or exposing secrets. It was deeper than that. It felt like pure concern, fear that something behind closed doors wasn't right, and that silence might make it worse. What truly stunned everyone was her honesty about staying silent for so long. She said she kept quiet, not out of neglect, but out of love, trying to preserve Rob's dignity. But that choice haunted her, and when she finally spoke, you could feel the shift. According to her, staying quiet any longer would have done more harm than speaking up. And that's when people realized this wasn't just gossip anymore. It was something much heavier, something real. She spoke with trembling honesty, naming her worries about Rob's son, Nick Reiner. But she made it absolutely clear these were concerns, not legal claims. You could hear the strain in her voice, not just sadness, but deep frustration, the kind that comes from watching something spiral beyond your control. This wasn't about protecting a reputation or image.
On a coffee break on the set, on a camera blocking day, to Norman Lear, who was standing over on the side, and I said, Norman, remember when I auditioned for this, and it was down to the last four, and one of them was Penny Marshall, and we had to go in and do improvisations with Rob, and he says, yeah, what are you getting at? I said, well, I really thought that Penny would get it, because Rob was part of each audition, and he was living with her and soon to marry her, and he would obviously do better with her wanting her to get the job. I mean, was I really the funniest one in the room when we were doing the improvs for all the suits? And he says, well, no.
It was heartbreak mixed with helpless anger. Then came the sentence that froze the whole room. Her words were sharp, poetic, and haunting. We all saw the bruises on his soul, but we were too afraid to ask about the bruises on his arms. Everyone went still. It wasn't meant to be taken literally. It was emotional. She was describing visible pain in Rob's spirit, not physical marks. The kind of hurt that shows in your eyes even when you say you're fine. Sally recalled one particular lunch just weeks before everything changed, and she couldn't stop emphasizing it because that was the last time she ever saw Rob face to face. But the man she met that day didn't sound like the bold, outspoken director people knew. She said he looked smaller somehow, withdrawn, constantly fidgeting with his phone like he was waiting for bad news. Every buzz made him flinch. When she finally asked if something was wrong, what he told her would haunt her forever. He looked worn out, not just tired, but spiritually empty, and said quietly, I don't know how to stop him, Sal. I love him, but I'm terrified of him. At that moment, Sally thought he was talking about industry politics, pressure from studios, maybe some powerful figure causing stress. She didn't think it meant anything darker. Not until she started hearing similar stories later from others close to him. She wanted to be clear. She wasn't making criminal accusations. What she described was emotional fear, the quiet kind that eats away at someone's peace until they can barely function. She admitted that looking back, that lunch felt like a warning sign she didn't recognize at the time, especially after hearing more people who cared about Rob say they'd noticed the same tension in his energy and words. That's where Tom Cruise's name came into the picture, not as an accuser, not as a whistleblower, but as someone who genuinely cared about Rob. Their connection went back decades, since A Few Good Men. They weren't just colleagues. They were friends with real trust. Insiders say Cruise has always been hyper-aware of people's moods, and reportedly, he had noticed something changing in Rob long before it ever reached the press. Now, nothing here is confirmed, no official reports, no formal accusations, but the emotional details Sally shared painted a chilling picture of a man trapped in heavy stress, caught between love and fear inside his own family. And that's what's unsettling everyone. Not because it's juicy gossip, but because it feels like there were signs that people missed. This isn't the kind of story that fits into a neat headline. It's raw, uncomfortable, and full of unspoken pain. That's exactly why people are paying attention now. According to multiple anonymous sources who claim to have been very close to what was happening, Tom didn't just hear rumors, he saw something with his own eyes that deeply concerned him. They say that back in November, Tom quietly stepped in, staging what could only be described as a private intervention, never meant for cameras or headlines. Apparently, he showed up at the Reiner home under the harmless excuse of discussing a new project. But those who knew the real reason say he wasn't there for business at all. He was there because he saw a friend in trouble, and he couldn't ignore it anymore. At first glance, nothing about that private meeting sounded unusual.
Knowledge tell us, a month before the murders, doctors changed the meds Nick was taking for schizoaffective disorder.
We're told Rob and Michelle Reiner were well aware that they had changed Nick's meds. They were alarmed at what they were seeing. There were changes in his behavior. They just didn't know what to do.
We've been trying for a week to find out why doctors changed Nick's meds a month before the murders. No one would tell us. All they would say is, you're gonna be shocked when you find out.
Just another friendly visit between two big Hollywood names. But according to insiders, what Tom Cruise reportedly walked into that day was anything but ordinary. Within minutes, the tone shifted from calm conversation to tense confrontation. And surprisingly, the focus wasn't even Rob, it was Nick. People present say things got emotional fast. Nick was allegedly shouting at Michelle, demanding access to a trust fund that had been frozen due to his ongoing struggles with recovery. There was no claim of physical aggression, but the energy in that room was explosive, enough to make even the calmest person uneasy. Then came the part that truly made headlines. Tom Cruise, a man known for discipline and laser focus, supposedly stepped between them, not as some Hollywood savior, but as a friend desperately trying to bring the temperature down. Those who witnessed it said that moment alone showed how serious things had become. Later, in private conversations that leaked among close circles, Tom reportedly admitted he'd been shaken by Nick's energy, describing a stare that felt cold, unpredictable, almost hollow. Again, these weren't accusations or medical claims, just one man's emotional reaction to what he felt in that tense moment. But what came after, if true, is what still leaves people stunned. Sources claim Tom pulled Rob aside immediately after and didn't sugarcoat a single word. He allegedly told him straight, "You're not safe in this house. You need to get him out, or you need to get out." That warning reportedly stayed with Rob long after Tom walked out the door. Think about that. One of the most powerful figures in Hollywood, someone who's seen it all, walking away deeply unsettled, not over gossip, not image, but fear. And here's where the story breaks hearts. According to multiple people close to Rob, his reaction was one that every parent struggling with loyalty and love would recognize. He didn't argue, didn't explode, he defended his son. People who were there said Rob told Tom something along the lines of, "He's sick, we can't abandon him, he just needs one more chance." That wasn't weakness. It was compassion. But compassion mixed with denial can become dangerous. Sally Struthers unknowingly echoed the same heartbreak when she spoke publicly later on. Her voice cracked as she admitted that Rob's endless forgiveness.
I was a real, nutcase. I was crazy. And it was more than drugs. It's really always about more than that. And I needed a lot of that sort of discipline. It's life. Life goes on. Life happens. Things flare up.
May have done more harm than good. She didn't blame Rob. She blamed herself. She said she wished she'd pushed harder, spoken louder, refused to accept the excuses that kept everyone too comfortable to confront the truth. Sally explained how Rob had slowly begun pulling away from the people who loved him most. Plans that once felt routine started getting canceled. Calls stopped being answered. Even old castmates from All in the Family noticed how distant he'd become. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet isolation. Some of them, still holding out hope, tried to organize a small reunion dinner recently. Something light, nostalgic, to lift his spirits. But Rob politely declined without any explanation. Sally said that no hit harder than she expected. Then she shared a moment that chilled everyone listening. She said she drove by his house about a week ago. Not to intrude, just to check in. It was the middle of the day, yet every blind was closed. The place didn't look like a home anymore. It looked sealed off, heavy, like all the light had been shut out. Sally said it gave her a strange feeling. More fortress than family home, quiet and closed to the world. She sent him a quick text saying she was nearby. Hours passed before he replied. When the message finally came, it was short and unsettling. Not a good time. He's home. No explanation, no follow-up. Just those 2 words. And now, after everything Sally revealed, those words sound completely different. Not like a simple update, but like a warning no one caught in time.
Rob Reiner and Sally Struthers.
Sally and I were part of a unique television family.
Oh!
Yes.
Wow!
The phrase, he's home, just 2 words, but they carried so much emotional weight. Not anger, not judgment, but pure exhaustion and quiet fear. To those close to the situation, that message summed up the quiet storm that had been brewing for far too long. And what really shook people wasn't just the fear. It was the money issues underneath it all. People assume that families at that level of success never run out of resources, that wealth protects them from real-life struggles. But Sally crushed that illusion. She revealed that Rob's finances had been quietly unraveling behind the scenes, not because of poor business deals or bad investments, but because he was trying to hold everything together. According to her, Rob had been secretly selling off assets, properties, shares, and personal items. Not to fund new films or enjoy retirement, but to quietly cover debts tied to Nick's ongoing battles. It wasn't about greed or extravagance. It was about survival, trying to keep things from exploding publicly. That revelation hit people the hardest because it stripped away all the glitz and left behind something deeply human. A father drained by love, trapped between fear and hope, still fighting to protect his child even as everything around him started to crumble. Sally didn't come forward waving papers or showing proof. She came forward with concern. Her voice cracked as she described Rob as frantic, drained, and constantly juggling problems that no one else could even see. The kind of pressure that doesn't look cinematic at all, just heavy, real-world stress that keeps you awake long after the lights go out. She said Rob truly believed he was protecting his family by handling everything quietly, paying off what he could, trying to stop the chaos before it reached the door. The heartbreaking part? He never realized the real danger might already have been inside those same walls. Then Sally mentioned something that still gives her chills, an incident from about 6 months ago. She was careful with her words, but her tone said enough. During a family gathering, Rob reportedly suffered a serious fall down the stairs. The story everyone heard was simple. Just an accident, a slip. He broke his wrist, had bruising on his face, and everyone accepted it. No questions asked. But when Sally visited him in the hospital, something didn't sit right. She said the bruising didn't quite line up with a normal fall. It wasn't evidence, just a gut feeling she couldn't shake. She admitted she gently asked him what happened. Not accusing, just asking. Rob didn't answer. He looked away, then quietly cried. No words, no explanation, just that silence. And according to Sally, that silence was louder than anything he could have said. Especially when fear and family are involved, silence becomes its own confession. She spoke about how shame can trap people in painful situations. The impossible question of how to tell anyone that the person you once protected might now be the one you're scared of. How do you even admit that to yourself? From what sources close to Tom Cruise have shared, his side of the story adds another emotional layer. Tom had reportedly offered to help, not with talk, but with action. He allegedly offered to pay for Nick to attend a private, high-security rehab center built for severe cases, far away from the spotlight. He told Rob something like, "Let me take the burden off you." But Nick refused to go, and Rob, heartbroken, couldn't bring himself to force it. Love, guilt, and hope were tangled together in a painful knot no one could untie. Later, Tom allegedly confided to friends that watching everything unfold felt like watching tragedy in slow motion. Knowing where it was heading, but being powerless to stop it. That alone shows how helpless everyone around Rob must have felt. And now, as these private truths slowly surface, the public conversation is growing louder about mental health, emotional collapse, and denial. Those discussions matter, but Sally made it clear she doesn't believe this was random or sudden. She spoke firmly about manipulation, about repeated patterns, and about how Nick would show remorse just long enough to win back trust, long enough to get what he wanted. Then, the tension always returned. She described the household as emotionally exhausting, not daily explosions, but constant pressure, a state of alert where no one knew what version of reality would walk through the door next. And then came the question everyone had been whispering. Why is Sally the only one speaking? Why now? Her answer was sharp. Hollywood protects its own until silence becomes impossible. She said people didn't want to accept that someone as respected as Rob Reiner could have been living in quiet fear. It shattered the picture-perfect image, and in this town, image means everything. But as she said, silence doesn't erase the truth. It only delays it. And Sally doesn't care who that makes uncomfortable anymore. She's 77 now. She's lost people she loves.
The Nobel Prize and would say, meathead wins Nobel. We went to a royal premiere of When Harry Met Sally in London, and we were walking up this red carpet to meet Princess Diana, and I got meatheaded a couple of times with a British accent. Hey, meathead, how's it going, meathead? You know, it's a Cockney accent. They meatheaded me.
And Rob Reiner hates being meatheaded. It may have been one of the most memorable roles in television history, the kind that most actors would kill for, but the name doesn't have much to do with who he is today.
It's like Dopey to me now. It's like Dopey. I mean, it's so far away from who I am that I find it odd.
And she's done keeping secrets to protect reputations that never protected anyone in return. She demanded accountability, not revenge, but truth. Sally called out what she described as a circle of enablers around Nick, friends who kept showing up when they shouldn't have, professionals who ignored warning signs, people who saw the storm coming but stayed silent. She didn't accuse anyone of crimes. She accused them of neglect, of letting things slide because of a famous last name, where warnings replaced action and consequences were always postponed. Then, Sally shifted the spotlight to someone who, she said, had carried the heaviest emotional load for years, Michelle Singer-Reiner. Up until now, the public focus had mostly been on Rob, but Sally said Michelle was the true stabilizer in that house. The peacemaker, the buffer, the one constantly stepping between arguments before they turned explosive. But what came next broke people's hearts. Sally revealed something so personal, so haunting, that the entire room fell quiet. Michelle had once confessed to her that she'd started locking her bedroom door at night. Let that sink in. Locking your own door inside your home, not from strangers, but from fear you can't even name out loud. Sally recalled Michelle's words. I wake up to footsteps in the hall, and my heart stops. That single line painted the whole picture. This wasn't occasional chaos. It was a house filled with constant tension, where silence itself felt threatening. She described Rob and Michelle as prisoners in their own home, not locked in by walls, but by love, fear, and denial. They had given everything to keep the family together, but by the end, there was simply nothing left to give. And according to what Sally later heard from investigators, the final breaking point, the moment everyone's been too scared to talk about, wasn't sudden at all. It had been building quietly for months, right there in the middle of that perfect Hollywood image. It didn't happen in one explosive night. It built slowly, like a storm creeping closer with every hour. Over the course of multiple days, tension inside that house reportedly escalated instead of easing. Neighbors later claimed they heard raised voices off and on for almost 2 days straight. Nothing distinct enough to call for help, but enough to leave everyone uneasy. And here's the harsh truth Sally pointed out. In neighborhoods like Brentwood, people don't rush to call the cops on famous neighbors. They turn up the TV, pretend not to notice, and assume someone else will deal with it. That quiet hesitation, that it's not my business mindset, might have been what allowed the situation to spiral unchecked. According to what Sally says she later learned, Rob made a phone call that night, not to emergency services, but to a private security company. It wasn't a cry for punishment, it was a plea for help. The call was logged that evening, and a response team was sent. But timing mattered, and the delay mattered even more. By the time help arrived, everything had already gone too far to fix. Sources close to the situation say Tom Cruise was furious when he learned how late the response came. He reportedly questioned why the urgency wasn't recognized immediately, but people close to Rob believe he probably downplayed the danger himself. He didn't say, "We're in immediate trouble." He likely said something softer like, "My son's having an episode." Even in chaos, Rob refused to paint Nick as dangerous. He didn't want handcuffs. He didn't want police. He just wanted peace in his house. That's the most devastating part. The instinct to protect your child, even when protecting yourself, should come first. Sally said Rob never stopped being a father, even in the darkest moment. He didn't fight back, not because he couldn't, but because he wouldn't. According to what she was told, Michelle tried to shield herself, but Rob's focus was on calming things down until the very end. The image of that, a man known for championing justice, choosing love over self-defense, will haunt people forever. It forces everyone to confront painful questions about family, fear, and silence. And now, as Nick sits in custody and the legal teams begin crafting their stories, a whole new storm is forming. Mental health, responsibility, systems, all of it will be debated. But Sally made one thing heartbreakingly clear. This wasn't an instant collapse. It was a long buildup that too many people ignored. The real battle now won't just happen in a courtroom. It'll be about the narrative, the truth of what actually happened and who's allowed to shape it. Yesterday, Sally made a public plea that felt more like a cry from the heart than a statement. She didn't aim her words at lawyers or insiders. She spoke straight to the public, to anyone watching this unfold. She begged people not to let Nick's defense rewrite history. Sally said she fears Rob and Michelle will be unfairly painted as controlling or cold, that legal strategies will twist compassion into cruelty. She warned everyone, this happens all the time in high-profile cases. The people who can't speak anymore end up taking the blame. So she spoke with absolute bluntness. Rob's greatest flaw wasn't cruelty, it was kindness. He was too forgiving, too patient, too hopeful. That, she said, was the only thing he ever did wrong. Behind the scenes, sources say Tom Cruise is preparing for the possibility of testifying if the case moves forward. Think about that. One of the biggest names in the world potentially taking the stand, not against an enemy, but for the truth about a friend's family. People close to him insist he's not doing this out of anger, but out of duty. He wants the timeline on record. He wants it known that help was offered and refused. And most importantly, he wants intent acknowledged, that there were clear moments where choices could have changed everything. Then Sally shared what might be the most haunting part of all. This didn't start in adulthood. She said the signs were there years ago, long before the headlines. Even as a teen, Nick made people uneasy. Not loud trouble, quiet trouble, the kind that hides behind polite smiles. Sally remembered one old rap party that she still can't forget. She said Nick was found alone in a back room, calmly breaking things one by one. Not raging, not crying, just methodical destruction. When Rob confronted him, Nick didn't panic. He smiled, a cold, unsettling smile that stayed with Sally ever since. She said she pulled Rob aside that night and begged him to get serious help immediately. And to be fair, they did. Rob and Michelle spared no expense, doctors, specialists, programs, everything money could buy. But as Sally put it, you can't buy empathy. You can't write a check that guarantees accountability. Since her interview aired, the industry's reaction has been swift and revealing. People who once posed proudly beside Nick are quietly deleting photos, removing tags, and rewriting invites. The distancing has begun. But Sally isn't backing away. She's standing her ground and calling out exactly what she believes everyone ignored. She said she has nothing left to protect, no career to preserve, no favors to trade, just the truth she lived through. And she wants people to understand Rob Reiner wasn't just a Hollywood name who faced tragedy. He was a human being living with fear in his own home, something we rarely allow powerful men to be seen as. We assume money solves everything, that fame means control. But as Sally said, love delays action. Love makes people believe tomorrow will be different, and that hope, more than anything, can become a trap. As for Rob's final goodbye, sources say the funeral will be quiet and deeply private. No spectacle, no statements. Tom Cruise is reportedly handling arrangements behind the scenes, focusing on privacy, not drama. Because even now, Sally believes Rob deserves peace. and she's determined his story won't be twisted by outsiders. Sally confirmed she plans to speak one last time, her final act for Rob. She said she's written a private letter meant only for him. She hasn't shared what's inside, but she said it's the conversation they never finished. That same lunch, just weeks before everything fell apart. And that says it all. There's a painful lesson buried in this whole story. One Rob himself might have told through his own films. We're taught that love conquers everything, that patience heals all wounds. But real life doesn't follow a script. Sometimes love isn't enough to save someone who refuses help. Sometimes it pulls everyone else down too. Sally shattered Hollywood's silence not for attention, but to give Rob something he never got at the end: honesty. She said he didn't leave this world as a legend or as a name on a marquee. He left as a father, scared and exhausted. And in telling that truth, she gave him his humanity back. As this story continues, court documents are expected soon, possibly even digital records, smart home data, logs, though nothing official has been released yet. We'll keep watching closely and separating fact from speculation every step of the way. But take this with you tonight, not as entertainment, but as a reminder. Look a little closer at the people around you. Check on the ones pulling away. Listen when someone's energy shifts, because sometimes the brightest smiles hide the heaviest weight. Rest peacefully, Rob. You deserved safety, compassion, and calm, not fear and silence. If you made it this far, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment with your thoughts. We'll be following every twist as this story unfolds. And don't go anywhere. There's another video on your screen right now with even more untold celebrity truths and Hollywood secrets. Tap it, and I'll see you on the next one.